Imagine waking up on a Monday morning, stepping outside, and instead of hearing the usual traffic rumbling on the street below, you hear a soft hum rising above your apartment. You look up, and a stream of flying cars glides overhead like a flock of metallic birds, moving in perfectly spaced lanes across the sky. No traffic jams, no red lights, no honking. Just the sound of the future drifting above your head. Now imagine this isn't a sci-fi movie, not a distant dream, but an everyday reality. What would your life look like if flying cars became the new normal? Before we jump deep into this world, pause for a second and picture the first moment you'd see a sky full of vehicles. For some people, it would spark excitement. For others, panic. Because the sky is the last place we expect to see rush hour. But if humanity ever takes this leap, everything about our cities, our routines, and our safety expectations would shift overnight. In a world where flying cars are as common as SUVs today, your morning commute might begin inside a compact aerial pod powered by advanced electric thrusters and guided by AI navigation. You wouldn't steer it manually. In fact, most people wouldn't trust themselves to. Instead, imagine entering your destination like you would on a rideshare app, and the AI takes care of the rest, plotting a path through three-dimensional air highways where thousands of vehicles travel simultaneously. At first, it might be terrifying to give up control. But over time, people would adjust the same way they adjusted to elevators, airplanes, and driver-assist cars. But this shift wouldn't just change how we travel. It would change how cities are built. Think about parking lots. Think about gas stations. Think about the massive amount of land today dedicated to cars that sit still 95% of the time. With flying cars, cities might shrink parking areas and expand rooftop landing pads instead. Malls, office buildings, hospitals, and even homes could come with built-in vertical docking stations. The skyline itself would become part of the transportation system, not just a backdrop. And here's where it gets interesting. If flying cars became normal, the definition of distance would completely change. A 30-mile drive that usually takes an hour in traffic could take 10 minutes in the air. People could live farther from cities without sacrificing time. Suburbs could stretch upward, not outward. Industries that rely on fast delivery, like medicine, emergency response, and even food services, would transform. Imagine ordering something online and having it delivered to your balcony by a flying vehicle in less than 5 minutes. Before we go deeper into what this world could realistically look like and how it could affect safety, economics, and even the environment, make sure you stay until the end because there's a surprising twist most people never consider. And if you're enjoying this exploration so far, consider sharing this video with someone who loves futuristic what-if scenarios, because the next part is where things start getting seriously wild. Now imagine what it would feel like the first time you step into your own flying car. You close the door, and instead of a steering wheel, you're greeted by a sleek control panel with a calm voice asking for your destination. There's no traditional engine noise, just a soft vibration as the thrusters warm up. The vehicle lifts straight upward, and suddenly the world you've known your whole life looks completely different. Roads feel irrelevant, traffic lights look ancient, and the horizon stretches wider than ever before. This moment would redefine the meaning of personal freedom. But with that freedom comes an entirely new world of responsibilities. Today, the rules of the road are familiar: speed limits, turn signals, stop signs. But the sky? That's a different story. If flying cars became normal, regulators would need to write a brand new playbook. Air lanes would have to be created to prevent chaos. You might have low-altitude lanes for short-distance commutes, mid-altitude highways for long-distance travel, and restricted zones around airports and government buildings. All of this would operate under automated systems because human reaction time simply isn't fast enough for three-dimensional traffic. Any mistake up there isn't just a fender bender, it's a fall. And that's where TI becomes the invisible backbone holding everything together. Picture millions of flying vehicles communicating constantly, predicting each other's movements, and adjusting in real time to avoid collisions. If one engine fails, the surrounding vehicles automatically shift formation, giving it space to land safely. If weather changes unexpectedly, the entire air grid reroutes itself within seconds. It's a world where trust in technology isn't optional, it's essential. But even in this world of perfect automation, tension would still exist. People might worry about privacy, wondering if the same AI guiding them through the sky is also tracking everywhere they go. Others might fear hacking, imagining the chaos a single bad actor could cause. Companies building these vehicles would need to develop protections far stronger than anything used in today's cars. Encrypted navigation, emergency override systems, and multi-layered identity verification might become standard features. Flying cars would be less like vehicles and more like personal aircraft, protected by military-level cybersecurity. Another major shift would happen in the workforce. Think of all the jobs built around traditional cars: truck drivers, mechanics, taxi drivers, parking attendants, traffic police. Flying cars would disrupt almost every one of those roles. Some jobs would disappear, but entirely new ones would emerge, like aerial route designers, sky traffic controllers, vertical landing technicians, and AI flight maintenance specialists. High schools and colleges might offer new aerospace-focused programs because the average person would need at least some understanding of basic aviation principles. Kids growing up in this world wouldn't dream of getting a driver's license. They'd dream of getting air clearance, and here's where things take a surprising turn. Even though flying cars could solve traffic problems and reduce commute times, they might create a new type of congestion, one that doesn't happen on the ground but in the sky, and the consequences of that might be more dramatic than anyone expects. In the next part, we'll explore exactly how that could change everything. Now picture this. It is a regular weekday morning in a world where flying cars are completely normal. Thousands of people are lifting off from rooftops, balconies, driveways, and vertical hubs all at once. The sky, once open and peaceful, is now a layered network of moving vehicles. At first glance, it looks calm and coordinated, but look closer and you'll see the real challenge. When everyone has the ability to travel in straight lines and take the fastest possible route, everyone also wants the same air corridors. What used to be a traffic jam on a highway could now happen in mid-air. Except the stakes are much higher. To prevent that, AI wouldn't just manage traffic, it would have to predict it before it even forms. Imagine the system monitoring millions of flight paths at once, calculating which areas might get crowded, and redirecting vehicles long before any bottleneck appears. You'd be flying, and suddenly your vehicle might shift its route slightly. Not because there's danger, but because the system is preventing future congestion. People would get used to trusting invisible decisions happening behind the scenes, decisions made faster than any human mind could process. But even with these advanced systems in place, the human factor never completely disappears. People might push the limits of their vehicle's altitude. Some might attempt to override default settings for shortcuts. Others might treat flying cars the way some treat sports cars today, wanting speed and thrill rather than safety. And that creates a new layer of risk. The slightest moment of arrogance in the sky could have devastating consequences. So, flying cars might come with non-negotiable restrictions, like maximum altitude caps, mandatory autopilot during takeoff and landing, and automatic speed limits that can't be hacked or overridden. Emergency response would also evolve. Instead of ambulances weaving through traffic, aerial rescue units could drop straight from the sky and land beside an accident in seconds. Firefighters might use flying vehicles to reach high-rise emergencies faster than ladders ever could. Police chases would look completely different, relying on advanced drones and high-speed aerial units that track suspects from above with pinpoint accuracy. Crime itself might shift, with law enforcement needing to monitor not just streets, but entire vertical layers of a city. And then comes the environmental question. If flying cars became common, the sky would constantly be filled with vehicles burning energy just to stay airborne. That means the industry would need ultra-efficient propulsion systems, likely electric or hybrid designs that use minimal power. Noise pollution would also need strict limits. Imagine thousands of vehicles buzzing at once. Without careful engineering, cities could become overwhelming. Manufacturers might compete to create the quietest possible thrusters, turning silence into a selling point. Even the landscape of real estate would transform. Home buyers might start asking how many landing pads a property supports instead of how many garage spaces it has. High-rise buildings might be considered more valuable because they allow easier takeoff. Suburbs might develop multi-level aerial streets, replacing traditional road maps. The whole concept of neighborhood planning would shift upward, like cities growing in 3 dimensions instead of just across the ground. And here's where the story takes an unexpected twist. If flying cars became the new normal, it wouldn't just change our routines or our cities. It might change human behavior itself in ways nobody is prepared for. In the next part, we'll explore the psychological impact. How living in a world where the sky is full of vehicles might reshape the way we think, work, and even dream. Imagine growing up in a world where the sky is never empty. Instead of seeing open blue space, children would look up and see streams of vehicles moving in layered paths above their homes. For them, this wouldn't feel futuristic. It would simply feel normal, the same way kids today accept smartphones and GPS without questioning how impossible they once seemed. But this shift would slowly reshape the human mind. When you live in a world where vertical mobility is everywhere, you start to think differently about limits, opportunities, and even your own independence. In such a world, the sense of distance would fade. People might feel less tied to a specific city or job because moving anywhere becomes effortless. You could live in the mountains and work in a downtown office without stressing about traffic or long drives. That kind of freedom could make society more flexible, maybe even more adventurous. But it could also lead to shorter attention spans and a higher demand for instant gratification. If everything becomes fast, anything slow begins to feel intolerable. That mindset would shape careers, relationships, and expectations in ways that are hard to predict. Psychologically, there's also the question of comfort. Some people might love the thrill of looking out their window and seeing vehicles streaking across the sky. Others might develop anxiety, feeling overwhelmed by constant movement above their heads. The sky has always been a symbol of peace, openness, and freedom. But if it becomes crowded with flying traffic, some might feel like that freedom has been taken away. Imagine sitting on your balcony at sunset and seeing dozens of lights cutting across the horizon. It's beautiful in its own way, but it's also a reminder that privacy, even in nature, is becoming harder to find. And then there's the fear factor. Knowing that thousands of vehicles are flying above you every day might create a low-level tension people have to live with. Even with strict safety systems, the idea of a malfunction happening overhead could make some people uneasy. Over time, though, humans tend to adapt. Just like people got used to airplanes, trains, skyscrapers, and highways, they would adjust to a sky filled with traffic. But it would still change the emotional atmosphere of daily life. Another huge ripple effect would hit creativity and culture. Movies, books, and games would reimagine what it means to explore a city or escape danger or chase a dream. The idea of freedom would be tied not to open roads, but to open air. Even architecture and fashion would evolve. Designers might incorporate aerodynamics into clothing or build homes that merge indoor spaces with aerial access points. Everything from commuting to recreational sports would shift into the 3rd dimension. But here's the final twist. If flying cars became truly normal, they might eventually lose their magic. What feels revolutionary at first eventually becomes routine. People might start complaining about sky delays the same way they complain about traffic today. And that's the most human thing of all. No matter how advanced technology becomes, we always find new expectations, new frustrations, and new dreams to chase. If you want more deep dive scenarios like this one, and enjoy imagining how technology could reshape our future, make sure you stay connected. The next What If might take you somewhere even more mind-bending than flying cars ever could.